Welcome to the spring edition of our Eason Must Reads. We have picked 8 books for this season, which I think you will love. I certainly hope so. There is definitely something for everybody.
Yeah, we say that a lot of the time. This time I think we actually mean it. I think this is genuinely one of the most eclectic selections of books we've done. You're going to start. What have you got? What's first?
So my first pick is American Dirt by Janine Cummins. Now, there has been quite a lot of controversy about this book, but as a work of fiction, I found it fast-paced, exhilarating, and completely unputdownable. So it tells the story of Lydia and her little 8-year-old son, Luca, who have to escape from Mexico to the US because they're being chased by a vicious drug cartel. So this is an amazing story. You become completely invested in the characters. The people they meet along the way become their family. And as they make their way to the US border, you are literally holding your breath. This book is unbelievably fast-paced and it really, really captivates you.
And I'm halfway through it and I'm finding myself page to page to page to page. In fact, I'm wasting my time here when I could be reading that book, frankly. My first one is, I want to start by prefacing this with anything normally that is a fantasy book. I read a lot of science fiction, I don't really read fantasy, and particularly stuff that has dragons in it, I usually immediately go, this one probably isn't for me. The lead character in this book is a dragon. This is Eoin Colfer's Highfire. It's his first adult book of fantasy, but this is a book in which Vern is the main character. Vern is a dragon. Vern is the last of his kind. He is living in modern times. He's living in swamps in Louisiana. And Vern is sad because he is the last of his kind, to the point where he's now an alcoholic and he drinks vodka all day and loves the movie Flashdance and watches streaming services of TV and essentially just relies on other people to bring him stuff. And he swears at those people and then they go away. But this made me laugh a lot. It is a fantastic story. It is, again, tightly paced. It's great fun. The characters are immense. It may have helped that I was reading it in Eoin Colfer's own voice in my head. Look up his voice if you get the chance. So even if fantasy is not for you, this one very much maybe, if you like the idea of something that's going to make you laugh a lot. It is called Highfire and it's the new one by Eoin Colfer.
So my next choice is a debut from an Irish author called Michelle Gallen. It's called Big Girl, Small Town. Now, I'm not the first nor the last person to describe this book as Derry Girls meets the Milkman. So set in a small, claustrophobic, curtain-twitching town in the north of Ireland, Magella works in the local chipper. She struggles with small talk. She finds it quite stressful. She lives with her alcoholic mother. Her grandmother has just been murdered and they're trying to figure out who did it. And everybody who comes into the chipper is a potential suspect in Magella's mind. But this book is a phenomenal debut. And as I said, it is kind of heartbreaking, but also deeply, deeply, darkly humorous.
Book number 2, I have to be very careful with this, mainly because there's a level of anticipation with an Anne Enright book whenever it comes out, and rightly so, because Anne Enright is a national treasure. I was very nervous going into reading Actress, which is her brand new book. Thankfully, within the space of about 5 pages, that was completely dispelled. It is the story of Catherine Odell. Catherine Odell is a fictional Irish actress who starts off as part of a family that's involved in the entertainment business. She then ends up going into Hollywood, in the glamour era of Hollywood, because she is a red-headed Irish actress. It's not really her story though. This is the story about the nature of the relationship between her and her daughter, Nora. And it's being told by Nora, who is at a certain point in her relationship with her mother, looking back on their lives, on how they were lived, on how she grew up as part of that family, living in Ireland of a certain time and a certain era with a famous mother, surrounded by people who didn't necessarily socially fit into the Ireland of the day. It is one of the more beautifully written things you are going to come across this year. That should be no surprise to you. So if you value writing that is in and of itself beautiful and elegant, and storytelling and the creation of characters, many of whom are just tiny peripheral characters in this book, and to flit through it momentarily but will leave such an impression on you, this may be the book for you. It is the brand new Anne Enright. It's called Actress.
My next choice is A Good Neighbourhood by Therese Ann Fowler. This book is very different actually. So it's about an African-American mother raising her star son Xavier. And everything is going very well until a new family moves in next door. It's a very nice middle-class neighbourhood. They have book clubs and they're all very neighbourly and it's a lovely community. And then Brad moves in next door. He's brash, he's white, he's rich, and he's kind of in your face. He also has 2 daughters. He has a stepdaughter called Juniper. Juniper and Xavier get together. Teenage love, passion, romance, but they know that Brad wouldn't approve, so they keep it to themselves. And then this one night, when they get together to finally cement their relationship, Brad finds out. And what happens next will absolutely destroy, shatter, and rip all their lives apart. It's a devastating book. It's fascinating, and it really, really made me think. It stayed with me long, long after I read it. Yeah, it's a very sad and thought-provoking book. I highly recommend it.
And on a completely different note, my third book is The Rearranged Life of Una Lockhart by Margarita Montemore. Una is 18, she's about to turn 19 years old. It is New Year's Eve, she's in Brooklyn, it's the 1980s. She's with her boyfriend. She is ready to become a 19-year-old. New Year's Eve strikes, she wakes up, she's 51 years old. She has no idea where she is, she has no idea what house she is in or how she got there. She has moved forward in time, it's pretty much the present day. There is somebody in her house who claims that they work for her and they have a letter for her that she wrote for herself. This is obviously quite confusing to you if this has never happened before. The entire story is then Una living her life out of order. Every New Year's Eve at midnight, when she is about to turn a different age, she flips backwards and forwards in her own life and thus is forced to live her own life completely out of order. It is immense fun. It asks you all sorts of deep questions about your own life and how you live it as well at the same time. But for me, this is, I know it's too early to talk about these things, a real holiday read. It is hugely worth your time, and it's called The Rearranged Life of Una Lockhart by Margarita Montemore.
This is my next pick. It's Dear Edward by Anne Napolitano. This is a book about a plane crash, and I'm not necessarily the most relaxed traveller, but it's okay because I think I will get on a plane again. It's about a plane crash and everybody on the plane dies except for Edward. So
That's going to help my plane travel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He's on the plane with his parents and his brother, and he's the sole survivor. So he becomes this kind of national hero, and there's all this focus and attention on him, and they call him the miracle boy. And he can't cope at all because he's obviously devastated and he's trying to grieve the loss of his entire family. And the book talks about lots of different people on the plane. So flashes back and forth between before the plane crashes and after the plane crashes. But essentially what this book is about how Edward begins to very slowly piece his life together again. But this book is full of kindness and compassion and love and also obviously grief. But it is a gorgeous book. It's full of hope, and I think that you will just sit back and absolutely read this book, and don't worry, you will fly again.
And my final book for spring is going to be one of those ones that's a monster, both in terms of its size, in terms of its subject matter, and in terms of, I think it's going to be up for contention for a lot of the major awards this year. It's Colin McCann's new book. It's called Apeirogon. It is a fictional novel, but based on two non-fictional stories about a Palestinian and an Israeli, both of whom have found themselves on either side of combat over the course of decades, both of whom have lost daughters in the conflict, and then both of whom join an organization for ex-combatants who think that the only way for there to be any way forward is for both Palestinians and Israelis to come together and find that way amongst themselves. It's told really strangely structurally. There are 1,001 chapters in this book. Don't let that put you off, because some of them are a single line long. It is beautifully written. It is one of the books of 2020, and it is called Apeirogon, and it's by Colin McCann. Those are our spring choices. They are 8 gems, and we think there's something in there for everyone, and we hope you enjoy them.